Welcome to the Starry-Eyed Effect. I'm Steph.
And I'm Brendan.
And I'm Jen. On this podcast, we'll be chatting about all things Williams syndrome.
The ups and downs.
And what it's like living with Williams syndrome.
We're excited to share our community with you. Thanks for being here. Brendan.
Jen. Hello.
Happy 7-11-23 day.
Yes. Happy 7-11-23 day. Let's go Williams syndrome. Woohoo.
Williams syndrome. We have this episode is coming out on the 11th of July of 2023. Yes. And that is significant for individuals with Williams syndrome.
Yes.
We have a guest in a little bit who's going to tell us about it. This week, guest we were excited to have on. We had Kieran Johnson on, and Kieran is a local Coloradoan. He's got Williams syndrome. He is doing some awesome work, really with awareness in the paintball community, and it was a conversation. It took a turn.
Oh man, it was intense, but intense in the best way possible.
It was a really fun one. And I can't wait for you guys to take a listen to it. Shout out to Southwest Airlines that will tag in this. Cause
Southwest.
He definitely has.
Ready.
And who else did we have on?
Oh, we had Jocelyn, who is like one of my favorite people. She's a former board member and a traveling buddy. We've traveled before, in the in-person board meetings. We talked about 7q11.23 day, which is today. And it was great. She's always such a great person to talk to. And we loved having her on the podcast.
We touched on the work she's doing with the Arbolino Center, which is our comprehensive resource for Williams syndrome. And we also talked about her son, Reese, and his dual diagnosis. He has Williams syndrome as well as autism. So I think it's a must listen on a variety of levels.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I have a few friends in the Williams syndrome community that also have a dual diagnosis. So it'd be really cool for them to also listen, and that they show characteristics of autism and neurodivergency and things of that nature. So
we are so fortunate to have both of these folks in our community. So I hope you all enjoy and that you got your stickers for this momentous occasion, because 7-11-23, that's not going to come around again, right? So this is the time our Williams syndrome peeps.
Yeah, and I think mine just came in the mail. So
well, we are grateful to be in this community, aren't we?
Yes, so grateful. Hey Karen, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well over here. I'm doing great today. How about yourself?
I am doing really well. So for those who don't know who you are, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
All right. Hello, my name is Kieran Devin. I was born with Williams syndrome on July 31st of 2000, and I was diagnosed with Williams syndrome at the age of 8.
So you got a birthday coming up soon, July 31st.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So that's you were born in 2020, so you'd be 23?
Yes.
You're in Colorado, Kieran. So are we. So we've got like 2 C's in the house. We've got Colorado and Connecticut. Have you always been in Colorado?
Originally I lived in El Paso, Texas, is originally where I'm from, but I moved to Colorado in 2019 after I graduated from high school.
Okay. So Colorado's relatively new for you guys.
Yeah, it is relatively new. We've been living here for 4 years, and it has been nothing but a fantastic journey through life, and I'm very thankful for the people that I have in my life today.
You were diagnosed at 8.
Yes.
And did you grow up in El Paso?
Yes, I did. I grew up in El Paso, Texas all my life. Okay,
all your life. This is fascinating to me. So tell us, like, how, or maybe you don't know, how did you get diagnosed? You were diagnosed at 8. Like, what were the chain of events that ended up happening?
Oh, well, my mom took me to the hospital because one time I was at home and I became unconscious for some reason, and they found out it was a pulmonary issue, and so they had to get it scanned. And then So yeah, the events leading up to that were scary. I didn't know what to expect or what to do.
Did you have like issues from like the time you were a baby until you were 8, or did all of a sudden this heart thing show up when you were 8, and that's like how it all came to get together?
I had issues way before then, so I already knew
Okay.
something was wrong.
Okay.
They already
Something was wrong.
yes, they already knew it.
And El Paso is kind of small,
Yes.
and it's a whole different world. So growing up having a disability in El Paso, how was that?
It was great because all the schools accepted me, all their football teams, cheerleading, dancers, and color guard actually wanted to take a picture with me at the Olympics. And so I went to the Olympics, and I was well known by then because it was my first year in the Olympics, and I was approached by a color guard member from Americas, which is another high school in El Paso. That's a small school. Americas was our opponent, but they were friends with me. So kind of that's how that transpired over there. It's like when I competed in my first year in Olympics, I won the 200-meter medal. So it was good to do it for the association, do it for my family, and do it for the school.
Track and field or swimming?
Track and field and swimming. I did both. I did both pretty much.
So you felt like you were supported in school. I mean,
Yes.
You had like friends, you had a community. That's awesome.
Yes.
Did you move with your family to Colorado, or how did that
Yes.
change happen for you? Okay.
So I moved with my family after my sister got accepted into law school.
Okay. And she goes to law school here.
She did, but she's getting a job, so she's working on doing good for the community, and that's all you can ask for as a person.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. So do you like one of the things that we talk about in the Williams syndrome community a lot is this, a lot of times, like it can change is hard for people with disabilities, Williams syndrome included, right? And it's hard for anybody, but it can be really hard when you've grown up with a group of people that know you and know about Williams syndrome. So coming to Colorado, a new place where you don't have like that established community, how has that journey been for you as an adult living with Williams syndrome and moving to a new place?
It's been more emotional than I ever thought.
So paintball, I know you're a huge paintball guy. Was that something you did in El Paso, or is that a new thing that you got into here in Colorado?
El Paso, originally I got hooked on paintball in El Paso. I'm kind of into the sport now, and I'm on a pro team actually, so that's nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in paintball in the first place? Like it's kind of scary. So tell us, like, did you have a friend that introduced you to paintball? Did you watch it on TV? Did you watch it on YouTube?
I watched it on TV originally, and then one of my friends asked me to go play paintball with them one day, and I said, sure, why not? Test it out. And then from there on, I was hooked. I couldn't stop.
And you started designing jerseys. So you were saying your first jersey was the most emotional for you. But so how many are you on? You were saying it's your 4th jersey now you've designed?
Yes, this is my 4th one, and this one is called the Gold Eagle jersey, and it's a native honor to honor native culture in our country.
And you design these, and do you sell them, or do you give them, like you were saying, you give them to your friends in the community, or like what?
Yes.
Tell us what you do with that.
The proper website to go to is uglypaintball.com, and you can find those, and then 65% of the profit goes to the Williams Syndrome Association, actually. So I'm helping raise money for the association because I love you guys with my core.
Were you a part, Kieran, you are a very active member of the Denver Williams Syndrome community, or Rocky Mountain region, as we call it. Were you a part of the Texas community as well, or does that fall under Rocky Mountain also?
I was part of Texas originally. I was part of the El Paso part of the Williams Syndrome Foundation. Then I came to Denver, and I found out there was a Rocky Mountain, so I joined Rocky Mountain.
Okay. So and we're the coolest, right? I mean, no offense, but we are.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We are the best people on the planet.
Have you been able to meet friends in the community, like locally, who have Williams syndrome, and are you guys close?
Oh, we're very close. We're tight knit. We're just like a family. I mean, we talk every day on the phone. We talk for hours on end. Even when my phone is charging, I don't care. I'll answer the phone anytime, anywhere, any place.
Kieran, do you work?
No, but I'm hoping to work for Southwest one day. And the reason I want to work for Southwest Airlines is because I want them to do a color scheme, like a William Syndrome color scheme on one of their airlines for us. And
Okay.
I really want to raise awareness not only on the ground but in the skies. Yeah.
I would love, we should hashtag in our episode, hashtag Southwest Air, and start talking to them, right? Like, let's get some visibility for the Williams syndrome community. Maybe it's a plane. Maybe it's just shouting us out during Williams Syndrome Awareness Month. Maybe it's hiring somebody with Williams syndrome to come like work for them. But and their airline would be such a great match for our community. They're fun and funny and outgoing too. So I love that idea, Kieran. Working for Southwest would be really fun.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard Flight 471, service to El Paso, Texas. I am your newest flight attendant, Kieran Johnson. Welcome aboard our 737 Williams Syndrome Awareness aircraft.
Oh my gosh. Look at that. Oh, bravo. I love it. Bravo. What else do you want people to know about just living with disability or Williams syndrome specifically?
Just be kind to people that need your help. When they need your help, help them. Thank you, and welcome aboard the most loving airline in Denver, Southwest Airlines. Thank you. You're
so cute. Do you struggle with anxiety at all? Yeah. How do you get through that? Friends, family, music, paintball?
All of that, yeah.
All of that.
Yes.
Right.
Can I finish my speech about being a pretend flight attendant for Southwest? I think that would be cool.
Oh my God. I would love for you to just keep going. You should just take us out the whole way with this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard Southwest Flight 1, service from El Paso, Texas to Denver. This is the Williams Syndrome airline. We have teamed up with Williams Syndrome this year to partner up and to tell people our stories. Our stories and our names are on this aircraft. Go Southwest. My name is Kieran. I'm your new flight attendant. Welcome aboard Southwest 1, service from El Paso to Denver. God bless and have a safe flight. See you guys soon.
Yes, Kieran. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Man. We're definitely tagging Southwest on this one, buddy.
Now we gotta make it happen.
And while we're at it, we gotta get some disabled resources in the air for our folks, right? There's lots of people with wheelchairs who have a hard time flying. Like, so while we're talking about including disability, we got to talk about that, making sure that people don't get their wheelchairs damaged, making sure that they can fly safe, making sure that they can feel empowered to fly, because that's a big deal for people with disabilities in general. So I agree with you. Like, what a better way to make people feel supported than to employ people with disabilities. So you obviously want to be a flight attendant, Kieran. You don't want to rent baggage, right? You want to be a flight attendant. Okay. Well, we'll tag them and see what can happen here, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, welcome to Southwest, where we are the most loving and most caring airline for people with disabilities. Thank you, and have a good day aboard Southwest 1.
Oh man, well, it's good to meet you, Kieran, again, and chat with you more about all the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah,
I am excited
to meet you, Karen.
I'm excited to see you at the.
Yeah, aka Mr. Golden Eagle. Let's go.
Yeah.
So hey, Jen and Brendan, camp is awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
The many different camps that we have for the Williams syndrome community, and we have a couple coming up. And Jen, I know you've done these camps before. And Stella.
Guys, camp is my favorite. It is my most favorite thing in the entire world. I had never been to camp before. Growing up, as a young person in life, I never went to camp. Yeah. And I have to tell you that I don't know who looks forward to camp more, Stella or me. I think the answer might be me. Is the best experience ever. Do you have questions about it? Because I'd love to just...
Yeah, I mean, so this will be mine and Bennett's first time doing any camp like this. He's I think appropriately excited and a little nervous, but I think the fact that I'm there now, because there's actually two camps now. Jen and I and our kids are primarily going to be we're going to be at what's called the therapy camp, which is for 12 and under. And then there's also a teen camp, which, God help me, the counselors and everybody are going to need to be sainted after that week, I would think.
They are in for a run for their money.
Stella's 13. Stella's going to be 13. next week. So this will be her last year of therapy camp, and like next year will be teen camp. And I am I'm sad because I like to go to camp. So the thought of not going to camp is like heartbreaking to me. But then I'm like, teen camp, are we really?
Yeah, I mean the camp is going to be the camp is located just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in a town called Rutledge. And it is. I went to this location in March for the adult Williams syndrome camp, and this place is spectacular. I mean, zip lines, a huge pool, the cabin. I was not sold on it until someone said, "Well, the cabins are air conditioned," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm not going to Georgia at the end of July if there's no chance of air conditioning.
Had me sold on air conditioning. Like
you had
me there next year for the adult camp. Catch me there.
You have camp for adults too. It's not right now, but those happen earlier in the year, and so we really do cover the spectrum of people with Williams syndrome and making this experience, like I said, the best. It's not only the best for the campers, it is great for the people who get to be involved, not just parents, because I keep talking about how much I love camp, but it's life-changing for the counselors. It's so impressionable upon the staff that work at the camps. Like, they say that having the Williams syndrome community at their camps makes their year. They look forward to it every year. So if you guys have not been to camp, where are you? We need camp. It is the best time ever, I promise.
Where have you been? Like, come on.
Yeah, the therapy camp will have, it's all led by trained therapists, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, music therapy, but yet there's also going to be all that great camp stuff like biking, archery, boats, horseback riding,
all the good stuff.
Wall, swimming, s'mores, talent shows. I mean,
so much music, so much dancing.
Yep.
Imagine leaving your kids, Joel. Imagine leaving Bennett in a community, just set him free. Set him free with his people. Everybody there knows your kid because they have a kid like yours, and they just take care of it. You can breathe. You can breathe. You can take a walk. You can have 5 minutes alone to read a book or go pee or do whatever you want to do. You guys
do all the things.
Yep. And the teen camp really leans into the arts, with music, drama, dance, fun, improv games and things like that. So, and it's not too late. It is not too late to sign up.
When's that thing?
The last day to sign up is July 16th.
You have 6 days, people.
6, yeah. Well, I guess, 5 days. I guess 6 days, including today when you're watching this or seeing this. So July 16th, you can sign up. You get more information at williams-syndrome.org/camps. Or you can email any questions that you might have to summercamp@williams-syndrome.org, and come join Jen and I and our kids, and we'll carry around a picture of Brendan and just be like, "Hey, we're here." And
they're in spirit. You're in our heart.
We'll do a flat Brendan and take pictures of Brendan around camp in different places.
Yes. Get it done, people. Be there or be square.
Camp is the best, y'all.
Hello, Jocelyn. How are you?
I'm great, Brendan. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, my dear friend. So for those who don't know who you are, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Jocelyn Krebs. I have a son, Reese, with Williams syndrome, who's 14, about to go to high school. And he has a little brother, Frey, who is 11. And I am believe it or not, recently retired biology professor. I have actually finally left my position at the University of Alaska Anchorage, where I was for 23 years. And while I was there, I taught biology students, taught medical students, ran a research lab that studied an animal model of Williams syndrome, trying to understand the role of one of the genes in that deletion. And then ultimately, after doing that is when my son Reese was born. So I went on to get the perspective of a parent as well.
Yeah, so you were featured in the Williams syndrome community. There was a documentary that came out that was called True Love, and it followed several folks and their Williams syndrome journey, and you and Reese and your family were part of that story. So geneticist, is that technically what we're calling you? Geneticist.
That's right. Yeah,
by
geneticist.
career choice, right? Geneticist by career choice. You had studied Williams syndrome before you actually had a child with Williams syndrome. And it like gives me goosebumps every time I share it. Because it's like how there's like no statistic, percentage of chance that ever happens, right? You're probably the only person ever and will ever be to have that. But you've been practicing as a professor, and now you're not retired. I know you say you're retired from that, but what are you doing now?
Right. So retired is something that I get to formally do as a professor, and it mostly means paperwork. I'm done with that phase of my career. But one of the reasons that I was ready to step away is because I have gotten so engaged in doing some very different things with the Williams syndrome community. And the most exciting one over the past year has been helping to prepare and launch the new Armelino Center of Excellence for Williams Syndrome, or ACE for WS, has just recently launched at the University of Pennsylvania and the hospital in Philly. And so it's this amazing growing partnership that is intended to support families with family members with Williams syndrome across the lifespan. So a focus not just on pediatric, which has been existing there for some time at the CHOP clinic. There's a Williams syndrome clinic at CHOP, but growing a corresponding clinic focused on adult issues, and then also really trying to address that transition between pediatric and adult, or in all ways, but particularly in medical care and in mental health care, that cliff that people run into when they're too old for their pediatrician. That's a very challenging time, and so we're trying to really focus on that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I was a part of helping, create, with Mr. Armelino, get the grant to get the ball rolling. So it's really cool.
So I haven't, and I think you might have mentioned it just a little bit, but maybe you could expand on it because we're in Colorado. Are you still in Portland, or have you been living in?
Yeah.
Have you been living a dual coast life? And the new center, Armelino Center, is going to be based out of Philadelphia. I'm not familiar with like CHOP or the differences between CHOP and the Armelino Center. So it sounds like CHOP was more pediatric focused. Armelino Center is going to be more like whole person Williams syndrome focused. And you've been leading that effort. So like specifically, like what are you working on in that? And maybe you can just tell the audience like where we're at with this whole center, which is so exciting.
Absolutely.
And it's so great for our community. But I know there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes. And it's incredibly exciting. And putting all these pieces together is hard. So CHOP, of course, I just used the acronym. I'm a biologist. So I'm terrible at just throwing acronyms out as if they're real words. So that's the Children's Hospital Philadelphia. So that is obviously it's a children's hospital. And so the Williams syndrome clinic there has been seeing patients of all ages in the area because they are Williams syndrome clinic with that expertise, but the main focus is obviously on kids. And so CHOP is a partner within the Armelino Center. So the center is you think of it as an umbrella. It's bringing several programs together to give that across the lifespan kind of support. And so the idea is that the more adult-focused clinic will be built at the medical school at University of Pennsylvania. And so there'll be partnership between the two hospital settings. And then the center itself is trying to do a lot more than just provide that really ultimately a lot of experts and a lot of specialties that really understand Williams syndrome, right? What all the Williams syndrome clinics try to achieve and provide that clinical care. But there's also a major research mission. So the idea that research studies can be occurring there and patients can visit both for their clinical care and to participate in studies. And then there will also be a lot of support for all of those other things that matter outside of the medical care. We plan to have, in partnership with the WSA, there'll be a social worker on site to help families make connections that they need, both locally and also families that come to visit the center from a distance, helping them find the kind of support they need wherever they come from. So a lot of pieces.
Yeah, sort of like a safe haven.
Yeah, one of the really exciting things is we have a physical space. So Mike Armelino, whose generous gift is what launched all of this, he believed really strongly in having a physical place where people could gather. And we're designing it now, and it's very family focused. The idea is that you walk into this space, and even though there are some clinical encounter spaces in the back, there's a big sort of neuropsych behavioral health team that will have some encounter space there as well. But when you walk in, what you see is a playroom for little kids, a lounge for teenagers and adults to enjoy, a place to eat, right? It's walking into this very welcoming, comfortable environment so that when families are coming in, especially when they're doing all the appointments that you have to do, if you're doing a clinical visit and kids are getting overwhelmed, we have a little quiet space where you can go. Your child just needs to scream at the wall for a minute. It'll be a nice little sensory space so that, you don't just feel like you're hanging out in a hospital all day, that you've got a really nice to go and see other families. So I'm really excited about it.
So that's your retired gig.
That's my
retirement
gig, right.
Yeah, your full-time plus retirement gig. That's amazing. When does Armelino Center officially open? They're not open now.
No, technically we are officially open. You are launched very recently, yes. But the physical space is not present yet. We're in design for that. But there is a website, and we'll make sure that everybody gets that link. There's a website and a phone number. And at this point, the center is accepting patients. So there's been a team put together of people who are either the people who know Williams syndrome well already, the team at CHOP, but also we're trying to build a team of people that are really interested in Williams syndrome, may have had some patients in the past, but because there hasn't been a center for adults, haven't had the time or the number of patients to really learn the ropes. And so the idea is that the center is actually helping support clinical time, which not everybody knows how it works with people with these doctors with these complex clinical and research and assorted obligations. Their time gets whittled away very quickly. And if you want them to be able to really learn a rare disease and devote a lot of time so they can see all of the patients, you basically need to make sure that they have the time protected to do that. And so that's one of the things the center can do with that team. So now people can call with questions, people can call to come in and make appointments. We have another thing I'm really excited about, the mental behavioral health team, all on the website, give that, but they are set up to just do this amazing immediate triage of anyone that calls, whether it's a parent with a younger child or an adult that needs to be seen by a psychiatrist, is looking for a psychologist, a therapeutic approach. They will immediately sort of do an interview, help make the right connections, and help people find that care, which is, even not even talking about that pediatric to adult transition. Those are hard services to find everywhere, find good matches. So we're really excited.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And so are you in the onboarding, are you on the onboarding team, or will you have a role there full time?
So the plan is for me to have a role there full time. I've actually been working as a consultant kind of behind the scenes for a while, especially while I still had my other full-time job. And we're still trying to work out all of the details of what the final structure is going to look like. We wanted to really prioritize getting the clinical team on board and ready to go in terms of patients being able to just come in and get seen, and sort of phase 2 is then going to work out how it all integrates with the research plan, the social worker, and the whole family. We're all definitely, so stay tuned. Work in progress.
Yeah, stay tuned. Yeah, because you, like I said, you live in Portland, so you live a little ways away. So this will look really interesting. So
my plan is to, in the short term, commute.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I commuted between Alaska and Oregon for quite a while for when I needed to be in person up there, even after we moved to Oregon. And so, yeah, my intention is in the short term to be commuting to Philadelphia and then I'll look at an eventual move.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, Reese is one of my favorite kiddos, and we know Reese from camp. Would you mind just sharing? I know you said he's 14 now and he's going into high school, but I also would like you to talk about him a little bit more because he has a dual diagnosis. We get a lot of questions through the podcast about individuals with dual diagnosis, and obviously you having a background in Williams syndrome and being who you are. Genetically speaking, that's probably not the right, but yes, maybe genetically and sexually speaking, would you talk about dual diagnoses and Reese and all the things about Reese? You love
Absolutely.
Reese, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Reese is awesome.
I agree. Let's see. So you said we had 10 days for this podcast to talk about?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Reese is obviously a completely amazing kid. He entered the world in the somewhat traumatic for the parents way that so many kids with Williams syndrome do, which was 9 months of colic and just, failure to thrive and all the scary things, and our first child, so no idea what we were doing. And so it was a rocky start, as it so often is. And he didn't get diagnosed until almost 19 months old, which is ironic because, of course, I was studying Williams syndrome that whole time. I was very familiar with it. And here we had this little baby who we knew from very early on something was up, even once we survived the colic and could think again. There was no doubt that he was missing the milestones. Things were going on. He looked a little unusual. There was something different about him, but he didn't have the classic Williams features that people look for. We even took him saw a geneticist from Seattle who had certainly seen many kids with Williams in her career, but she didn't see it by eye either. And we were lucky in that Reese's heart has always been in quite good shape. And so we didn't get the other common trigger for the diagnosis, more severe SVAS. So we were just tootling along, wondering, well, something's going on, but it's not Williams syndrome. I said that any number of times. Whatever's happening here, it's not Williams syndrome.
Of course.
We finally did the genetic testing and it was Williams syndrome. And I spent however long thinking, did I just wake up from this crazy dream that Reese has Williams syndrome? But one of the other things that we realized once we said, yeah, okay, Williams syndrome, my life is crazy. And clearly I've been working on exactly the right thing. Started sort of recognizing the ways, as you do, as you study your child and you study the often fairly limited descriptions of a syndrome that you find online, that he seemed not classically Williams syndrome in other ways. And one of the things that became more and more clear was that Reese, even though you know him, he loves you all and everyone's a friend, but he has never been I'm going to just walk up to everyone and give them a hug, which is a very common behavioral phenotype in Williams syndrome, but by no means universal. But of course, it's the one stinking adorable, so it gets talked about a lot. But then, so I had this kid that for a child with Williams syndrome seemed a little shy and withdrawn compared to the advertised norm. And then his speech delay was much, much more profound. Lots of individuals with Williams syndrome, have a delay before they start talking. But then, once they start, they're off and running. And that was not the case for Reese. It took him a very long time really speak at all, and then just a very slow process becoming verbal. He is verbal. Obviously, some individuals with the dual diagnosis, complex communicators in other ways and may not be truly verbal different flavors of autism or a variety of presentations in that way. But this is what this all eventually led us to, was having Reese assessed to see if he was also autistic. No doubt that he is, this dual diagnosis. And so it means we get to be a part of two communities, which is an upside, but it means it's always a little confusing in each one, because all of my friends with their autistic kids are like, where did you get this crazy social butterfly?
He's too social for autism. Yeah. And then Williams syndrome people are like, he's not social enough. Although I think he is.
Well, and one of the things that's always fascinated me about Reese is, with sort of the world at large, he can be very shy and not that interested in engaging with people. But when he meets anyone else with Williams syndrome, it's instant, sees the connection and just will beeline. Yeah. So it's kind of amazing to me that that affinity just pops out.
Yeah. I also want to say that Reese has such a great sense of humor too. He's so fun.
He is a comedian. He is absolutely.
So how does, so he has autism as a dual diagnosis, and I have heard that autism often gets diagnosed like as the, other thing with Williams syndrome people. I'm sure there's other things that people get diagnosed with as well, but I do hear autism commonly. Is there, just in your, professional opinion, are there things specifically that designed to treat people with a dual diagnosis, or is that something that you guys are going to be focusing on at the Armelino Center? How do we as a community, I guess, support our Williams syndrome people who do have dual diagnoses?
That's a really great question. There actually is already an autism center of excellence at Penn. And so I think that we're going to find some real opportunities for people interested in junction. Autism and Williams syndrome is complicated to diagnose because there's a lot of features of Williams syndrome that overlap with the autism spectrum. Both of them are big spectrums just on their own. And so in a lot of ways, it almost becomes a spectrum on top of a spectrum of how autism co-presents with Williams syndrome. All of that said, there are certainly a lot of social teaching approaches, modern applied behavioral analysis, ABA, not old school, poorly implemented ABA.
Not old school ABA, yes, yeah.
Yeah, there's been some terrible things called ABA in the past that have traumatized a lot of now adults, autistic adults, but done well. Both of our kids have actually had a wonderful success with ABA. And I think it's something that works for everyone. But as it happens, most insurance companies will cover it only for autism. And so that is one of the few perks, I guess, of getting that additional diagnosis, is it makes you eligible for some services or insurance coverage. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. I'm really hoping to push the center to have a little extra focus on that. We think 20% of people with Williams syndrome probably also autistic.
That's interesting because I think I've told you before that I've always thought that Stella could easily take an autism, or assessment and probably qualify for that too. Wow. And I just have never done it. Hang on for 1 second. Because I've sort of thought, maybe this is it probably is an uneducated, assumption, that they sort of treat autism similarly to her Williams syndrome, right? So I didn't know, to your point, besides ABA and besides some of those things that you get covered with insurance with an autism diagnosis, I guess I'm just asking you, are you seeing anything beyond those things that would be a benefit? Like for somebody like me that's should she get dually diagnosed, or does that make sense or not? Are there advantages, medically speaking, to having both? Things that I haven't uncovered.
Yeah, I would say, medically, there's nothing that would jump out at me. The things that we have to worry about in terms of health, medical problems, excuse me, that's well covered by watching the things we need to watch for Williams syndrome. In terms of autism, yeah, in a lot of ways, there are places where access to benefits is really dependent on that, to the point that there are people that are forced to seek an autism co-diagnosis even when it probably isn't a genuine diagnosis. Okay. And so that's hard. And again, because of the the blurring of enough overlap of the Williams syndrome spectrum and behaviors with autism, people can do that, but it then makes it a little hard to sort of truly understand the interface when some percentage of the people with the co-diagnosis, it's more of a strategic diagnosis than a genuine one. That said, I always say anything you can do to get your kid the services that will help them.
The more the better, right?
Right, exactly. And for some of it, I made the crack earlier about that I get to be a part of two different parent communities by having the dual diagnosis. There are a lot more families affected by autism, by Williams syndrome. And so in terms of just knowing other moms in the special ed community here, things like that, those connections have been really just personally helpful. But then it also, as your child grows up and comes to understand their identity and where it's going, I think that's where it's a place to think about it too. The autistic community is filled with very powerful self-advocates and can be a really supportive community to be a part of. And so I certainly feel like anyone that has a genuine autism diagnosis sort of has the right to connect with that community as well and maybe find affinities there that they don't find Williams syndrome from.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Well, speaking of kind of advocacy, I love that this is going to launch tomorrow on 7/11/23, and you designed some artwork around this. So would you mind telling everybody about just 7/11/23 Day in general, what it means to our Williams syndrome community and the artwork that you've created?
Yes, absolutely. So 7/11/23 is a set of numbers that only a few people get excited about, because not everybody knows that this is the maybe not so thrilling to the general public way that geneticists label positions on chromosomes.
Right.
But of course, all of our chromosomes are numbered, starting with the biggest for number 1, so numbered by size. And chromosome 7, of course, is the chromosome that is the home of the deletion, the Williams syndrome deletion, nearly 30 genes that are impacted. And chromosomes, and people have probably seen pictures of this many times, there's a way to look at chromosomes in which they look like they have stripes, black and white bands. And this chromosome banding is a technique that's been around for decades. Scientists have been using this to map chromosomes and understand which is which. When a child in utero do a karyotype, and when you do amniocentesis and do a karyotype, that's what you're seeing, is that sort of old-fashioned, been around forever banding technique. Well, those bands get labels. So chromosomes have physical addresses on them, which is how geneticists have kept track of things for a long time. So chromosomes, each chromosome has its number, and then all of our chromosomes have a place in them called the centromere, which is just a little handle that we use to sort them. That only matters because it means every chromosome has two what we call arms. There's a big arm and a little arm. The little arm is called the P arm. I remember it is P for petite. And then the long arm is the Q arm. And so when we talk about the address for the genes involved in Williams syndrome, we say it's 7q11. So the Q means that it's on that long arm of chromosome 7. So the rest of the address is essentially bands get numbered from that middle point, out the P arm, out the Q arm. And so the 1123 is then just referring to physically which band and subband the region of interest. So 7q11.23 is the home address of the Williams syndrome critical region. And so it's just kind of remarkable that that date came around this year. It's not coming around again in any of our lives that we get to have 7/11/23. And so it's a really, it's an exciting day to celebrate. I'm glad people noticed it in time. The way my art comes into this. So I've been doing science art for a long time. It's something I do to relax. I do a lot of sort of very complex art pieces that I call nerd tangles for people that do Zentangles. If you're familiar with that term, I do Zentangles, but they're all these science themes. They're my nerd tangles. Yes. And I started doing a group of them based on chromosome 7, where I took essentially the chromosome with the real bands as they truly exist if you do the stains, but then I would decorate each band in fun ways. And then what I did was I went to the region where the Williams syndrome critical region lies. And of course, in Williams syndrome, that's a deletion, right? People with Williams syndrome are missing one set of that information. But I didn't want to just make a hole in the chromosome, take that piece out, because, you know, as a geneticist, yes, I know it's a deletion, but those of us with family members with Williams syndrome, we think of it as something really magical that's been added. It's not a loss. And so I started putting a little banner in that space, and what I first started doing actually was giving them as gifts to friends. And I would put in that space the name of a loved one with Williams syndrome, again, showing what they had been given in place of that handful of genes. And then I started making ones where I just put that address, the 7q11.23 address in there. And so that's one of the pieces that sharing for this wonderful date, because it then has that address captured right there on the chromosome. And then the other thing that I did for fun was actually make a sort of a logo, just the date written out, 7/11/23 with a little Q, because I'm a geneticist and but then I just made the numbers look like sort of folded up chromosomes. So to create that same image of that banded chromosome, but then also forming. So those are the things I came up with.
Oh my gosh, they're so fun. So the bands, all these different bands, and I looked at your artwork, there's a significance there. So that's how you've like created this artwork, is around these different, like, I guess, start and stop points. Is there a reason for the different coloring, or you just wanted to offer like a lot of color combinations and design combinations?
Yeah, so I have several that I've done just in the official colors of the WSA. That's actually some of the ones that I started. So there are a few that are a slightly simpler color scheme, and they're often in that. But then no, I like color, and so I just would have fun. So what I do is when I draw these, I do them in black and white, and then I scan that black and white version so that I can then redo it. You know, I'll print it back out and hand color it in all different kinds of colors so that I have a lot of different.
Right on. Big shout out to Outshine Labels. Yeah.
Indeed. So wonderful that yeah. Offer those as stickers. I had just been making them myself for fun and handing them out to friends. And yeah, I was really excited to be able to do that.
I wonder if it'll morph into merch too, like shirts and hats, because I know so many people, to your point, like this is, to the everyday person, it may not make sense, right, what this is, but to us, there's so much impact there and so much meaning behind what you've drawn that I can see people wanting to wear this every day, not just on July 11th.
Absolutely. Well, and they're eye-catching too. And so there's something that it'll make people ask, you know, what is that on your shirt? And then you have a chance to spread some awareness.
Well, and what I love about you always, Jocelyn, is you have a way of explaining the complexities of genetics in a way that regular people like me can understand. And so I appreciate that. And now, like before, I was like, oh, like I don't really know, you know, I know what 7q11.23 is. I know that that's the Williams syndrome deletion, but like I didn't realize what exactly it meant, right? Like so if anybody is getting the sticker, or when we do eventually launch merch, they're going to know, like, listen to this episode. Jocelyn will tell you how to explain this.
Yes.
My favorite thing to do is translating like the crazy stuff that geneticists talk about, our secret codes, into actual understandable human language. So that's always a treat for me.
Oh my gosh, we are so lucky to have you. I mean, we really are. And Reese, but you too. We'll keep you.
You've been listening to The Starry-Eyed Effect, presented by the Williams Syndrome Association. The show is hosted by Jennifer Keaton, Brendan Lemieux, and Stephanie Karen, and produced by me, Joel Listman. Theme song by Tommy Barbarella and Mariella Elm. Got a question for the show? Email us at podcast@williams-syndrome.org. Video version of the podcast available on YouTube at the Williams Syndrome Association channel. Review us on Apple Podcasts and maybe it will get featured on a future episode. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Starry-Eyed Effect wherever you get your podcast delights.